I guess I was, different from the norm, just like, okay, be normal. I don't know. I didn't choose to be normal. I chose to be myself. So
Yeah.
Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to the Promised Land. We got a special episode today. It's your boy Dylan. We have our first interview. I want to introduce a multi-talented musician, actor, director, screenwriter from Omaha, Nebraska, Tru Vers.
how's it going?
Good, man. Glad to have you. So we're going to get right into it. I saw you perform at the Otis show.
Yep.
You performed at the Omaha one as well, correct?
Yep.
You blew it away, man. I was very
thank you.
impressed. How old are you again?
I'm 18.
18.
I'll be 19 in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's impressive, dude. So kudos to you for that. Are those your first two shows, or have you done shows
No.
before?
I've been performing with since January. I mean, I've done open mics for about 5 years or so.
Wow.
But my first actual show was back in January, so
Gotcha.
about 11 months.
Gotcha. Where was that show at?
That was at the Benson Theater in Omaha.
Oh, nice.
And I actually booked that one myself, handled all that, which is a mess. And then I got a booking agent.
Yeah. So I'm sure that comes with a lot of learning experiences, being young, doing music since 2018. Your Spotify said, you're a kid then.
Yeah, for real.
These learning experiences. How did you go about learning how to do that kind of stuff and get your feet wet and start getting into the industry?
So when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew how to do was write, and I just knew I knew how to write, and I knew I wanted to make music. So I got this $30 microphone from Amazon.
Yeah.
It was terrible quality. Hooked it up to my laptop, and I had no sense of flow, whatever. It was terrible. Everything about it was bad. And then you just work things out, as you go. One of my good friends told me this. It's like making music is like water coming out of a faucet. The first water that comes out, it's all gross and nasty, but as it starts flowing through, it starts getting, better and better. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know he quoted it better, but
That's all right. It totally makes sense to me. So yeah, and then when you talked about booking, how did that process go when you were first learning that?
So I always I tried to get shows, and I'm like, oh man, I'm from Omaha. There's not much. It feels like there's not much opportunity in Omaha, and I'm reaching out to all these venues and just trying to get some sort of spot to perform at.
Yeah.
And I'm doing all these open mics and such, and you don't make any money from open mics really. And I didn't really know. I didn't have merch to sell, none of that stuff. So when I did my first show in January, I did it with a buddy of mine. His name's Luke. He's actually my engineer, but he makes music himself too. And that's how I found out about him. Back about 5 years ago. We've been working together for over 5 years now.
Wow.
But yeah, I booked that one myself, just reaching out to venues. And then back a little over a year ago, I just started going to more local shows, local hip hop shows, and getting connected in the scene, making more connections, networking there.
Yeah.
And met a lot of cool people from that.
Yeah, I definitely know how it goes, man. I've been trying to do the same for myself and going to these shows, meeting the people, meeting the promoters, the bookers, finding those people. It really means a lot. That's a nice transition. I'm glad you brought up your engineer.
Yeah.
One of my notes, so after the show, I was fucking blown away. I was like, this kid's got fucking talent, and it's hard to come by. You get some people that are just up there trying, and everybody's got to start somewhere. But so I went and I listened to your entire discography.
Wow.
And
okay.
I went deep. I started at the first EP.
Oh man.
So
you know how bad it got. Yeah.
I mean, I think there was a lot of, even with production wise, it's your first EP. It's your first thing out.
Yeah.
but there was a lot I still heard and saw a lot of like great things, and then that makes sense why you're out now, or where you're at now with your album that just came out in 2023. But one thing I noticed with a lot of your newer stuff, your production is impressive. It sounds like you've been making music, or whoever's engineering your stuff, it sounds like it's been 10, 20 years you've been at this. That was something that you don't see a lot with young artists. If you want to talk about what it's like being in the studio with your engineer and working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Luke. Luke Relfs has really elevated my career a lot. I met him back in like the 8th grade. He was doing shows and performing all over the country, I guess. And I saw him for the first time. I reached out to him. I go, I'm gonna make a song with that guy. And next thing you know, we're in the studio, and he's mixing, mastering my stuff, and we just formed a connection from there. And we've been great friends ever since. And a lot of the songs he featured on 2 of the songs there, and then me and him both co-produced some songs from there. I'm not great behind like the technical stuff. He's amazing at that. I don't know how to work all that, but I have ideas, so I'm able to kind of tell him ideas, and he's able to put those ideas into action on the computer. And
and I'm sure that works well, different perspectives, you not really being so keen on what the engineering side looks like, but him knowing that, and you bouncing ideas off of each other, just probably comes greatness after that. So I mentioned your EP. You have 7 singles out right now, 1 EP.
That's true.
In 2019, and then 1 album, your first album in 2023. In the age of music we're in right now, where it's so much easier for people to want to make music if they want to, we've seen the transition towards the like single approach, like when you're first growing, just putting out as many singles as possible, because a lot of people nowadays just want to listen to one song. Unless you have a huge fan base, it's hard to get people to listen front to back to an album. What was your thinking behind being your first ever project, being an EP, and now only 4 years later dropping an album? I'm sure that comes from your influences a little bit.
Well, it definitely does. I've never been a singles type of artist. I like more of the artistic side, where I'm able to create a whole project, which is why I put out a movie that went along with the album. I'm like, I've never seen that been done before. It's a big project, but people that like it will really like it. And probably not nowadays. Probably the best idea would have been to drop more singles leading up to that, but I don't know. I've always been focused on the bigger picture there, and like 2024, I'm trying to drop at least 1 song a month, just to put more singles out. But I like to think bigger picture with projects, and telling a whole story front to back from an entire project, not only an album but a movie as well to go with it, and just create this entire like entertainment experience that people can maybe relate to, or whatever.
Tell me more about that then, the movie side of it. In your description it said actor, director, screenwriter. I didn't know that, and I guess that is an interesting approach. The only other person I can think that ever did something like that was Tech Nine with his Nina album. He put out the Cathartic season 1 and 2, went along with the songs. Tell me your approach, how you went about it, and what your process was in that.
Tech Nine's such a cool guy. I met him a month and a half ago.
I've met him twice.
He's a cool
awesome.
He's a cool guy. I'm trying to get him and ISO on this new project. I talked with them about that, and that's something we can go into later. But I was like, okay, I'm an artist and I make music, but like, what separates me from everybody else?
For sure.
What would make people want to listen to me more? And when I was growing up, I didn't really have much of a father figure in my life. At the time, uh, back then, my dad was abusive. I had an alcoholic stepfather, and so I didn't really have that male role model. So I looked up to movies and music and stuff, and that's really what raised me in a lot of ways. And so if I could be that kind of influence on other people, I'm like, man, that would be so cool if I could put the two pieces of art together to form one big project. I've never seen that done before, and I want that to happen. I want that to be like a thing, So if I can put all the songs on an album on a movie and make it tell this entire story when you put the two together, that was my whole idea there.
Yeah, I love it. One notable thing from your first EP, which I want to talk about.
Okay.
A feature from Bizarre from D12. That's impressive. I want to know. Yeah, I want to know how you went about that, how you got that.
Yeah. Well, I was 13 and I'd never made. I thought all of a sudden, I'm bigger than whatever. So I reached out to all these artists that I listened to.
Yeah.
And he was the only one that. That's not true. Some people responded, but he responded with probably like within the day or within the week or whatever. And I think it was just kind of luck of the draw. I was working with a producer at the time who goes by M Stacks, he produced some songs of mine, and he was working on an EP with Bizarre, and that's how we had that sort of connection.
Yeah.
And so, he charged me a little bit. It wasn't too much. We actually made 2 songs together. I only put out one because I lost the original files for the first one.
Oh.
So,
well, yeah. I think it was a great song, especially fitting Bizarre's persona and what he's done with D12 on his own. Halloween Night, I would give that one a listen for sure. Anybody listening.
Just don't listen to my part.
No. I think, man, what you had to say on that album, because even your opening song on that album.
Sure.
Like, a lot of people would criticize that as like, oh, it's just a young kid trying to make music.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
for
blah.
sure.
When I was listening to it, even the writing, the stuff you were talking about, I mean, you took some shots in that song too, calling out 6ix9ine and Drake and but I think you have
which is funny. Drake ended up being like one of my favorite artists. So
oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But I think I think you make a point though. It's especially artists that are lyricists and want to tell a story and do all that. Like, you made a good point with the title Idol and talking about all these other people that want to idolize people that are just famous for no reason sometimes. Your next notable one that I want to talk about, your feature, your new single Freedom with Otis Julius.
Yep.
Works out perfect that you just did 2 shows with him, but tell me about that project and how that collaboration came together.
So I met Otis back in, I want to say March. I was doing a show in Council Bluffs, and then he had a show the next day in Omaha, and a lot of the guys that were on my show in Council Bluffs were like, oh, you should meet this Otis guy. And so I went to the show in Omaha the next day, met Otis. That was his first tour of the year. He did like 4 tours this year. Yeah. And so I met him, and super cool guy. We chopped it up, talked a little bit about music and the direction that we're both headed as artists. And then we stayed in touch a little bit, and he came back around later that year with King ISO. He opened up for the Med Call tour.
Yep, I was at that show.
Okay,
too.
Cool. And so I talked with him there, and I think we had talked about working on something, and then they continued going on tour. They did some tour dates, and they had like a break where they stayed in Omaha for like 3 days, and I hit him up. I'm like, yo, how long are you staying in Omaha for this break or whatever? And he's like, oh, tonight's the last night, and then we leave tomorrow morning. I'm like, oh man, I wish we could have gotten in the studio and made something. And he's like, well, let's hop in tonight. And I was, at the time, I'm in, I was a senior in high school. So I'm in, because this was back in I don't know, May,
Yeah.
and sometime in May, and so I'm at school that day, and I'm sending him all these beats and such. I'm like, oh, just tell me which ones you like, and he sends me back this one. He goes, yeah, I like this. So, which homie of mine, DRS, who was at the Omaha show, he's a super dope guy. He produced a few songs for me on the new album. He produced that song, Freedom, and Otis liked that song, so I'm like, okay, dope. We'll get in tonight and record something. I was at school all day, so I didn't have any time to write anything. And so actually kind of a cool story. I was hanging out with my friend, and it's probably like 11. It was like a Friday, so it was 11 p.m. on a Friday night, and we're chilling. I'm like, man, I don't think I'm recording this song with Otis. It's like 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And he hits me up at like 11. He's like, maybe it wasn't that late, but looking back, I don't know. My memory is like
It's all right, man.
Littlefoot. Anyways, he hits me up. He goes, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then he goes, you can come pick me up. He sends me his address. I picked him up at this hotel by a casino or whatever. He was doing a little gambling or whatever. And so we picked him up, and we go to the studio in South Omaha that he knows about. I never knew about it, but a lot of people that I know actually record there, and super cool place.
Yeah. What?
And then
how many kids get to say, "Oh, I'm in high school all day, but then I gotta go record a song later. Don't you worry about it." Like,
for sure. That's kind of how my whole high school life was, though. For real, I was like, yeah, I got a show tonight. I put up flyers around the school.
That's awesome, dude.
And so then Otis was recording, or the engineer there, he was like, all right, who wants to record first? And Otis goes in the booth, and as he's recording, then I start writing my whole thing. As you know, I write my whole verse as he's recording there.
That's a good segue then too. I want to talk about the creative side a little bit.
Okay.
You hear different from everybody. Some people don't force creativity, allowed it to be raw and natural. But some people, I mean, they block it out in their schedules. They're like, this is when I'm going to write. This is when I'm going to do this. Talk to me about your writing process, how it comes along, how you, we'll start with that.
Yeah.
Your writing process.
That's kind of, sometimes when I'm forced to write something, I do end up writing something good when I am like, okay, I have to write this within the hour or whatever, like super fast. And I end up usually coming up with something good. But a lot of the times, sometimes I'll just I'll wait for something to come to me and then write. When something comes to me, I immediately have to stop whatever I'm doing and whip out my phone a notepad or something, write it down because it'll just happen. And so, but I do try to dedicate some time, because if I only rely on that motivation, that kind of supernatural motivation that just comes to me, then if I just rely on that, I'll never get much done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Also with your writing, I notice listening to all your stuff, like you do a good job of having a variety of flows, which doesn't come often. Sometimes that takes a lot of teaching, a lot of learning, especially for young artists. How do I've heard from different people that they listen to a beat and they hum a melody or hum what they want their flow to be. How do you find those different pockets of different beats to change up your flow and have variety?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that's tough for me sometimes too. And I will sit on a beat for a month or two just racking my brain. Oh my God, I can't get the next flow, blah, blah, blah. And, but sometimes, like a lot of the time when I listen to the beat for the very first time, I'll just record, I'll do like a voice note or whatever. And just I think they call it like scatting or whatever. Like, just like not just humming syllables pretty much. So I'll either do that. A lot of the times that helps me find direction of a flow. When I hear, I'll just you hear natural pockets and flows, like where a drum beat would go, or like, humming out a drum beat or beating out a beat there, or and sometimes I just write and works out
just comes.
the way, depends on what I want to write, I guess.
Yeah. So you mentioned being 13 years old when you like getting started into this. Sometimes it's not the easiest pill for people to swallow, especially from parents sometimes, and the people around you. You get a lot of backlash. You get a lot of. How did that come, and how did you work through that and continue to? Because it's hard for people to realize sometimes that you are able to see a bigger picture than everybody else.
Yes,
and it's like. I know I'm telling you and you don't see it, but I'm telling you, so you better fucking listen.
Yeah, exactly.
So working through that, being so young, maybe having your parents be like, are you like, okay.
That's like when I went on the show this weekend and whatever, I was like, I go by Tru Vers. I'm about to be your favorite artist. You don't know it yet, but
yeah.
And no, when I started writing, my parents were kind of like, oh, he's just going through another phase or whatever. And you don't know when you first start where it's going to go, where it's going to take you. And I remember going to sleep one night. I had a notebook full of rhymes and such. And I went to sleep one night. My dad found my notebook like under my bed or whatever. And he sees I'm cussing all over in the in the notepad. And he wakes me up in the morning. What is this?
That's funny.
And I'm like, I'm a rapper now, like whatever. And no, so they really didn't fully support me up until maybe like end of junior year of high school, because that's when maybe it was senior year, because that's when things started really taking off, and they started seeing that. They're like, oh, okay, so things are actually starting to like make some sort of move. He's getting shows. He's actually making money from
you
this.
Have something to show for it, right?
Yeah.
And sure, being in school too, like I mean, the people, your peers sometimes can be mean and probably try to tear.
There was
you
a
down.
lot of bullying going on, for sure.
But, I mean, if you want to speak on it a little bit and how struggle, because I mean, kids even struggle getting changed to different schools, like and meeting new people and all this stuff, making friends.
Yeah.
And when you're doing something like this that not everybody's really thinking about, I'm sure it came with a lot of adversity.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole ton of friends in high school just because I guess I was, different from the norm, just like, okay, be normal. I don't know. I didn't choose to be normal. I chose to be myself. So, and that comes with a lot. So people will always hate on that, but you'll find a select few that will really like understand you and they'll ride with you. They can see through your perspective. And a lot of people don't see that, though, especially in high school, because people want to hate on whatever is different in high school.
Exactly.
That's how it is.
Sure.
Middle school, high school.
Yeah.
That's just what it was.
For sure. Well, now you're still in school.
Yeah.
College is a lot different than high school. High school has a set schedule. So now being in college, having it be a little bit different, you're open to some more opportunities. You're in a different area. Where do you find the time to like stay creative, have time to write, like all this stuff? Like it's a definite change. It's a change. And, and how did you adapt to that, and how you feeling now?
Yeah, it's tough. I definitely, there's a lot of days where I'm like, I'm going to drop out, So I don't know. I'm taking it a day at a time, honestly, at this point. But I try to put like the end of the day or the beginning of the day, actually right when I wake up. Sometimes I'll write. Sometimes that's a lot, how a lot of ideas happen. It's right when I wake up, just write whatever first comes to my mind. I watched a J. Cole interview and he was talking about doing that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try that. And it actually is really cool. That works. But at the end of the night, I try to put some time aside to work on. I have a schedule, a to-do list of, okay, I have to finish writing this script or this scene in the movie, or put together clothing design for the next movie, because I put together clothing design for every single scene.
Wow.
And or write this verse on this song, or try to work a little bit on production, or sell 5 tickets, or so many tickets, whatever. That kind of stuff. I have that on a to-do list.
Yeah. So, do you have any other? We talked about movies briefly and directing. Do you have any other projects like that out aside from music?
Well, we have the youth movie that came out.
Okay. Where can people find that?
Right now, I'm just selling it on DVD. I am getting it. I've been saying this for like so long now, but I'm trying to get it to streaming.
Okay.
I hopefully will be able to by the end of 2023. So within the next 2 weeks, whatever. Hopefully get that to streaming so people can actually stream that, because a lot of people don't have DVD players anymore.
Yeah,
it's tough to like sell a product nowadays with streaming.
Yeah. Especially like that.
Something like that where it's like, okay, you want to make your money back from it.
Yeah.
But you also want people to see it.
Yep.
So, what's the best way that people can access that, but I also make a profit? It's kind of back and forth. It gets tough. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
So the show, I mean, we hear that from a lot of major artists and stuff, that touring is like and doing shows. That's like where artists make their money nowadays, especially with Spotify, Apple Music. And I'm sure you see that translate to there too. What's coming up for Tru Vers? What's in the works? Can you talk about? What are you excited for?
Yeah, so we're working on the new album right now. I just recorded the intro to my album less than a week ago, and working on making a new song at least once a week. Focused on getting this movie started. We're supposed to start filming December 16th, but that's not we have to push that back a little bit because I'm still working on the album and such. But we're gonna start filming hopefully at the end of the winter, beginning of spring type of deal, and working on putting out. I want to put out a new song every month in 2024, and then put out an album. Whereas this last album, I put out the album and the movie on the same day, and we had like a premiere at the theater and such. This time, I kind of want to put out the album, then wait 2 weeks, and then put out the movie.
Yeah.
And kind of maybe that'll help people differentiate the two a little bit.
Where do you, who are maybe some... Where's the growth from here? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see Tru Vers being in 5 years? What artists do you want to collab with? Things like that. What are some goals for you, man?
5 years. I want to definitely be living off this full time. Right now I'm not. That's kind of why I'm still in college and such. But I definitely want this to be my full time within 5 years, hopefully. I feel like that's a good time frame for 5 years, and I want to do more shows out across the country. I've kind of stayed in my little pocket. I've expanded out
local
a little bit, but not too far. I want to go on a tour. By 5 years, I'll hopefully go on a lot of tours. But, and I want to collaborate with some bigger names that I've looked up to, like that. I want to get a Tech 9, King ISO. I'm trying to get them on the new album. Talked with them a couple times about that, and hopefully, I look up to a lot of people. I look up to like Eminem, Drake, Kid Cudi. NF is super dope. I'm wearing an NF hat right now, actually. But
did you go to that show in Lincoln?
I did the NF show.
Yeah,
I did not. Actually.
Oh man, dude, he puts on a show, man. I tell you.
Yeah, I heard. I know a lot of people that went to that. Yeah, I'm excited. He's coming. I think it's Kansas City.
Oh yeah,
this upcoming summer or whatever.
Does sound right.
Hopefully going to that. Yeah.
Nice. Well. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else? Where can people find you at?
So I'm on all social media. It's TRU space VERS. A lot of people don't. I need to start doing that at shows now, spelling out my name, because people will like look up TRUE and it's like no. TRU space VERS. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you stream music. Find me on any social media, Instagram, Facebook. All that,
Perfect, man. Well, I think this went great, and I
thank you so much for
having
me.
Yeah, for sure. This was the Promised Land podcast. I appreciate you guys joining, and we'll see you next week.
Audio Jungle.